let's take a look at them individually. Tez Walker, you mentioned, this year played at North Carolina, and you mentioned here's the 40. 4.36 is what he clocks in at. 6'1", 193, so decent size. Local guys will remember first team American Conference performer a couple of years ago at Kent State locally. This year he was third team All ACC, and he really had to kind of appeal a couple of times to get an additional year from the NCAA. Otherwise, those numbers would be significantly higher. Alec Pierce is a comp that they like to compare him to. And as you mentioned, all-day vertical target, long, linear frame, impressive build, and he has the speed to win foot races. The other thing that you find out with him, he stepped up and kind of continued to play well. Booming build-up speed. He eats up that cushion, separates vertically. Look at the career average. It's over 31 yards on touchdown receptions. Yeah. Ability to stack coverage, save on catches. Let's look at some of the weaknesses, some of the things that the scouting say. Now, route runner, dull cuts, that's something you can do. Disjointed, sloppy footwork. Again, those are all things that are correctable. The inconsistent tracking and adjusting deep balls would be a concern. But when you look at the strengths, above 30 yards on touchdown receptions, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to the type of vertical threat that this guy is. And when I go through scouting, I like to watch multiple years of players because year in and year out, things can change, things can get better. Sometimes they can get worse. So I went back and I watched his Kent State film as well. And he went up against the likes of Oklahoma, Washington, Georgia. And there were times when he looked like one of the best players on the field in those really talented conferences. And then he obviously moves over to UNC. Like you said, it took a little bit of time for him to get on the field. He was appealing his eligibility case with the NCAA, ends up getting on the field, but it's about mid-season, and just the chemistry just wasn't there the way that you thought that it could have been with him and Drake May. And so even with a really talented quarterback passing the football, the production wasn't as good as it could have been. But you mentioned, look, 30-yard average when it comes to those touchdown passes, and just shows you the type of deep threat that this guy is. The comp of Alec Pierce definitely makes sense because he is that vertical stretch type of a player, but I think he's got a higher ceiling than Alec Pierce did. There are definitely things that he needs to clean up, and we saw it specifically at the Senior Bowl. He's just got to get stronger and more consistent at the catch point. The two jobs of a wide receiver: get open, catch the football. And he can get open, but catching the football, sometimes it just eludes it for whatever reason. And that's something that you got to spend a lot of time doing. You got to eliminate those concentration drops and be a little bit more sure-handed. But if he is, we're talking about a guy that every corner, every safety, every defensive coordinator has to account for when he is on the field. And that specifically, again, is what I think the Browns have been missing in their passing attack, is that type of player. Put a true threat on the back end of the defense every time you hit the field, and I think Tez Walker has the speed and the vertical ability to do that.